Hey friends, welcome to the Art Espousing Podcast. James and Lisa here. James, I'm so excited about what we're going to be talking about today. Have you ever tried to figure out how well am I doing?
Right.
Like how do you measure your well-being as an individual and then as a married couple? This topic is going to be great. We're just going to cover that and give some language around how to measure that with a tool from Giant that's called the Peace Index. It helps us gauge our internal well-being based on external forces. It helps us as couples assess the sense of peace and stability in our lives. It's amazing because you sometimes are not able to actually articulate what's going on. And this is a visual tool that you can actually use to talk through and measure exactly how well you're doing.
Yeah, kind of reminds me of like when I get to do my favorite thing of taking our car into the shop to get work done on it, and obviously there's something wrong with it. And the first thing they always want to do is they want to put it on some diagnostic machine to check all the readings. And like that, you can see external issues with the car, but really not know what's going on the inside.
Right.
And so the Peace Index in the same way is kind of like a diagnostic machine that helps identify the root issues of what's happening internally by what's going on externally in our world, right? The tool actually has 5 areas: purpose, place, people, personal health, and provision. And they're like gauges in our life that allow us to see how those external forces are actually affecting our internal well-being. And I think this area is also really great because this is kind of your sweet spot in the area of well-being and mental health. And you work with so many people individually on this space. So I know that you've found this tool helpful, even just helping to clarify and give language to actually what's going on in a person's life, right?
Yeah, because when you're overwhelmed and you're not at peace, it's hard to figure out what's actually going on that's causing you distress. And so I love it. So we're going to walk through each aspect of the Peace Index, the 5 Ps that you just mentioned. And so as we go through it, we would encourage you as listeners to actually gauge. So you may want to get a pad and paper out to write it down, or get your phone and your notes.
If you're driving, you probably just need to add it in your head, right? Yeah.
Take a mental note. Don't crash. That wouldn't be peaceful to do that.
No, that would not be.
No. So you're going to rate, it's almost like you're giving yourself a grade on a scale of 100%. 100 being, this is going fantastic. And 1 being, I am rock bottom in this. And then obviously everywhere in between. So you could rate yourself 26, 27, 47, 97, whatever the case is, but give an honest evaluation of these 5 aspects and jot that down.
So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through each one. And after we're done talking about it, you just rate yourself, like Lisa said. So let's start with purpose. Purpose is about having clarity and meaning in how you're spending your time. Do I know why I'm spending my time in the things I'm doing? Do I have a sense of direction? Do you feel like your life and work matter? Is there alignment with your values? Your daily actions reflect what's most important to you. That's all about purpose. So on a scale of 1 to 100, quickly, how would you rate yourself on how you are doing with purpose?
Perfect.
The second thing is place. So place is about the environments where we show up. Do I feel safe and settled where I live, where I work, where I spend my time? It would be like your physical environments. So your home, your workplace, are they peaceful? Are they functional? Are they frustrating? All those things add up into your place. Place is also about belonging. Do you feel emotionally and socially at home in your community? And then finally, it's about stability. You're not constantly moving around in transition, trying to set up new homes, set up new offices, set up new spaces. So that's place. So on a scale of 1 to 100, how would you rate your place? Okay, the third area is provision. And this one's a little bit more complicated because initially when we think about provision, we think about money. But really, it's about, do I have what I need? Am I provided for? It does include financially, but it's also materially and practically. Do I have the things I need to live and be comfortable? So it does include financial security. You're not constantly worried about money. It means practical resources. You have what you need to function, like transportation, the tools you need, support around you. And then it's margin. It's about your time. You're not living paycheck to paycheck. Emotionally or financially. So do you have bandwidth and the ability to rest and recreate and enjoy life? So that's all provision.
Right. So we've done purpose, place, provision, and you want to rate yourself on provision, as James just explained that. And the fourth is personal health. This is about physical, emotional, and mental well-being. So am I taking care of myself in these areas? So physical health. Are you sleeping? How are you sleeping? Are you eating? Do you have good exercise rhythms in your life?
Right.
Mental wellness. Are you managing your stress, anxiety, or depression?
Yeah.
Do you need to see a therapist?
Right.
What's going on in your life in that area? Self-awareness. Do you know your limits? Do you know when you need to recharge?
Right.
These are all important aspects of personal health.
Yeah, and personal health is complex because it's not just one area, right?
Right.
It's all those areas were one person. So you have to kind of take a moment before you rate yourself 1 to 100 is, okay, in the area of physical, how am I doing? In the area of emotional, how am I doing? In the area of mental, how am I doing? And kind of that make that your total number.
Exactly. So I could be great in mental wellness and self-awareness, but I'm actually not eating well. I'm not sleeping well.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would obviously lower my score in this area.
Right.
Yes. So take all those factors into consideration. Finally, people. This is my favorite category.
It is, isn't it? You're a people,
It is.
people
So, yeah, I'm a
person.
people eating people person. So what are your relationships like? Are they life-giving? Are they supportive? Can you be honest in them? Or are they draining and debilitating,
Right.
dysfunctional? So you want to look at your relational health. Are you connected or are you isolated? You know, in this last season for us, we were a bit isolated.
Right.
So that would be a lower rating. Do you have a support network? Do you have people around you can trust and you can lean on? You don't have to have an army of friends. You need to have a few people that are there and have your back in all seasons of life, celebration, and in times when times are hard.
Right.
Do you have peace in those relationships? Is there minimal drama? Can I get an amen?
Mm-hmm.
And healthy boundaries and mutual respect. I love this idea of healthy boundaries is that you don't have to say, I have a boundary. Your people actually understand that, know that, and respect that, and you with them. Okay, that's people. Rate yourself in that area.
Right.
How are you doing? Now you're going to take all 5 categories, purpose, place, provision, personal health, and people, those numbers, and you're going to add them up and get a total.
Right.
Then you're going to divide it by 5.
Right.
And that's going to give you your peace index.
Right. That dynamic score of how you feel right now. And one of the things that I realize about your peace score is that there's no right or wrong number. It's a dynamic score.
So it's not a failing grade
It's
or
not failing grade. It's just a snapshot of where you are right in the moment, but it does say something. So if your score's in the 50s or 60s, that's indicating that maybe there's some areas of internal well-being that you need to address. If it's in the 70s and 80s, you're doing great, but there's always places that you can look at that kind of go, how can I improve that? And that's one of the things we want to help you do today is talk about some ways that you can actually improve your peace score because it doesn't have to stay where it is right now today.
Yeah. And this is a tool that you use often and really very well versed in. If you had a score of 80 and you're like, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. So when you say you could work on something, you would probably look at what is your lowest score. So maybe you do have an 80, but in one of the categories, you would pick your lowest and go, why is that? And maybe do some questioning around. Is that how that works?
Yeah. Again, it's like a diagnostic tool. So it shows you the areas that are low. And we'll talk about this, but for each of us, there's going to be one of these 5 or maybe a couple of these 5 that are going to be more significant in our life than others, right?
That's exactly right, James. That is called a leading indicator.
Right.
Each of us have a leading indicator. One of those 5 areas have more weight and hold more weight with us. And all of ours would be different from one another.
Exactly. So like for me, my leading indicator is purpose. So if my purpose is high, then, I can deal with lower scores in the areas. But if my purpose starts lowering, all the other scores will start lowering. So my place could be lower, but if my purpose is high, my overall peace score is still going to be high. But if my purpose starts going lower, then I'm going to feel that more in all areas. And it's going to affect all those areas. For me, a second one that's right behind purpose would be provision. So when things start feeling tight financially or there's not enough margin in time, that can start affecting my overall peace score.
Right. You guessed it. My leading indicator is people.
Right.
Because I'm a people person. And so when my relationships at home are not well, it does affect everything in my life.
Right.
I would say it also probably the next thing it affects is my physical well-being because my emotional well-being score goes low. So it impacts everything. Maybe everything at home is fine, but I have some friendships or key relationships at work that are challenging to me. Those things are really important to me to be at peace. We don't have to be on the same page. We just have to have an understanding. But if that's not well, I'm not well.
Right.
My second leading indicator is place. I love my space to be orderly.
Right.
And I've reduced my expectations as far as I can. Everything doesn't have to be spick and span clean, but everything has a place and it should be in its place, in my place.
And if it's not in the right place, it usually ends up in the trash can place.
Yes, I will throw things away if people don't put it away in the right
place. Where is that? I threw it away. Oh, I needed that.
So it's very important to me that there's order because it does bring me a sense of grounding and things go better with me when my place is in order.
Okay, so let's talk about now that you have your peace index score, what are some ideas for increasing scores in each area? And again, you're going to be able to tune into what your leading indicator is, and some of these may be more important, but all of these would be helpful to increasing those areas. After you got your diagnostic, you have to actually address the areas that have issues. We'll start with purpose. And, when you think about purpose is foundational to fulfillment and internal well-being. It really is, even though maybe not your driving indicator for everybody, it's still very important that you understand your why that you're here.
Yeah.
There's been tons of books written on purpose. And I love this quote I read recently that purpose actually provides activation energy for life. So when we know what our purpose is, we can be activated into every area of life. So that whether that's our family, our work, relationships, activities, all those things are driven by purpose. Currently actually reading this book called The Purpose Formula by Jessica Rimmer. She talks about this strong purpose is linked to better immune health, resilience, it's linked to happiness, healthy habits, strong relationships, and mental and physical health. So there's such a correlation there with purpose. And low purpose actually often stems from an unclear identity, right? And I know this is a big area for you, Lisa, just in this area of identity. And when people are struggling with their identity, obviously they're going to struggle with their why, their purpose. One of the things that we always anchor identity to and purpose to is in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. The Apostle Paul talks about that we're a masterpiece. He talks the way that we're created and designed by God. And then that's such an important thing for us helping people find their purpose, right?
I love this tool that we use in the Marriage Reboot called Discovering Him, Discovering Her.
Right.
It allows you to kind of identify a series of questions that helps uncover some of the things that you love, that you're good at. We know that our identity is rooted in who we are in Christ.
Right.
But what we do helps define, or what we're good at helps define our purpose. I was just with a young lady yesterday, and she's had multiple jobs. She has many certifications in all kinds of different areas. And she literally said, I don't understand my purpose. This tool would be great for her of discovering her is to actually go, what is it that you love? What are your talents? What are you good at? What brings you joy? All those kinds of things that help actually pull out and define what it is your purpose to do, your unique design and wiring. And I love this idea of purpose. It helps me know my heck yes and my heck no.
Right.
So I can know if someone's wanting me to build an Excel document, it is going to be heck no. So
you might break the computer.
That's right. And so that's a very concrete, simple concept of computers are really off limits for me. But the truth is when you really define your purpose, everything becomes clear of what you should be doing and what you should not be doing and where's the best place that you should land. Another thing that we found is purpose is externally focused. It really isn't all about us.
Right.
My individual purpose is to facilitate change and growth.
Right.
And it's in other people, in other organizations. It's bringing people to their greatest, highest good, whether it's a marriage or an individual or a department if tasked to do so, or to increase excellence in an area of where I work.
Right.
Those things, I'm bringing change and growth. But this isn't all about me. It's the design and purpose God has put in my heart and the gifting He's given me to actually make impact on the world around me.
Yeah, that's good. While you're saying that, I always love the statement that we're made on purpose for a purpose. And I think about Jeremiah talks about that. I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. And so God's planned our purpose for us. And so He has put those talents and abilities in there. And for, like you're saying, for us to use that as guardrails, that we're not spending our time or investing our time in things that really don't fulfill the unique design that God has for us.
Yeah. I love the idea that, what? God doesn't want to keep it hidden from us.
Right.
It's not like He has a plan and purpose and He wants us to know that and walk in that.
Yeah. Having some tools that you can actually begin to shape what that purpose is really good. And I think one of the key moments going back to the marriage reboot that we do with couples is when we actually take couples through this process of understanding not just their own unique design, but how God has uniquely wired them to be together in relationship. And then what their purpose as a marriage can bring into the world. And it's going to be unique. We talk about the snowflake design, snowflake purpose, because it really is what they and they alone can bring into the world, right?
James, there may be a time in a marriage relationship where one of the two of us feel stuck.
Right.
And so that really requires grace and guidance instead of guilt. Being curious about that, having intentional conversations, empathetic heart and listening that you're wanting to help discover what it is, where it is that one of the two of you feel stuck.
Right.
This is where the tool support challenge matrix comes into play. It's like, how can I actually support your unique purpose while helping us grow in our shared one? Can you unpack that a little bit for us, how that works?
Yeah, we've done an episode on the support challenge matrix, but basically it's in these times when maybe somebody's struggling with their purpose, it's how do you calibrate what that spouse needs? So they may not need to be berated because they're uncertain of what they're supposed to be doing at the time, but they may need more support, and challenge to come along with it. So it's, okay, I know you're struggling, but you have this. Maybe the challenge is, or the support is some ideas, some collaboration on what that could be, but it's not making them feel bad for being stuck or just in maybe a melancholy space in their purpose, but it's actually coming along and using a tool like Support Challenge to actually encourage them and liberate them. That's the word we use, is empower them, help them see new possibilities, new opportunities that they can walk into their purpose.
Right. I feel like this goes from you to me more often in providing challenge and
I
support.
love that.
Balancing it. But I remember just as an example, is I actually gave support to you of going, you got this, you can do this, and you're gifted at this. And rarely do you find yourself like, I don't know, but it was a moment I could see that you needed me to call out what I've seen in you and your gifting, and that you're walking in that. And so it's simply that, at being able to identify what it is your spouse needs and bring that, whether it's challenge or support.
That's true.
So here's some practical tips to raise your individual or together purpose score. So if this is something that you are low in and you want to work on, these are a couple of things that you can do. Is schedule a monthly purpose check-in and just set it and go, if this score is low, then maybe for the next couple of months, we're going to set it the third Saturday and we're going to have this conversation. Right. You may want to ask questions like, what's bringing you meaning? What's bringing us meaning? Where do you feel stuck, or where do we feel stuck in our purpose together?
Right.
How can we use our gifts for others? Just a time to just reflect and take space for that. What we do know is our purpose grows with intentionality.
Right.
It isn't just going to automatically default happen. It takes intentional conversations, intentional actions, and literally being able to write down what your purpose is.
Right.
It takes humility. It's knowing your strengths and knowing your weaknesses.
Right.
I poke fun of my weaknesses often. And then there's an eternal perspective. We evaluate, are we on target for the greater good? Just like I mentioned before, our purpose isn't just for us, it's for us to make a difference in the world around us.
Right.
So how are you doing in that area? And then align your life with God's purpose, loving Him, loving others, living generously.
Right.
These are ways that you know that you're on target of going, my purpose isn't all for me, it's about the world around me.
Yeah, your purpose doesn't have to be something grand or spectacular. It could just be fulfilling, loving God, loving others, and living generously with your life and the talents and abilities that He's given you. It doesn't have to be some significant milestone piece. It's just living out of the wiring and the experiences that God has given us. A couple thoughts that might be helpful for you. First of all, if you want to read a great book on purpose, I would encourage Jessica Remmer's book, The Purpose Formula. I'll put that in the show notes. You can check that out. And then we just say, if you're interested in going deeper on purpose in your vision for your marriage, we'd love to talk to you about doing a marriage reboot with us. You can DM us on Instagram or email us with a link in the show notes, and we can set up a time to talk a little bit more if a marriage reboot is right for you. Okay, so let's talk about the second P, which is place. Again, this is about environments, and environments deeply impact internal peace. The place we live, the places we work, the place that we show up, our physical body shows up. So I know for us, who wouldn't love South Florida, right?
Yeah.
Sunshine all the time. We always say we have two seasons, perpetual summer and hurricane season. So hurricane season is so great.
We love this place, this tropical environment so much. When we go on vacation, we go to more tropical places.
Right.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's perfect, but it doesn't mean that it's the right place for everybody. And so there are people who come to Florida that don't like Florida.
They really love mountains.
They love mountains. And
we don't have any mountains.
That's totally okay. But even though we love our place where we live, we love our home, there are still things that could affect our place score. And again, this is not a static score, it's dynamic. And so there could be some external factors during a season. When we went through a lot of hurricanes, back in 2004, we had 4 hurricanes came through back to back. Our place score was pretty low then, right? But it was a season. It was a snapshot, not the movie of our life. That's why this is a dynamic tool, right?
Right. It reminds me, I was coaching a young lady through Enneagram actually, and we were looking at the peace index for her. In place was really low. And so I was asking her, what is it about your place that is causing you? It was causing her a lot of stress, like in the red, Mayday. She has a son. They lived in a neighborhood where he couldn't go out and play. She didn't feel like it was safe for him to do so. And I'm like, is there a possibility within the next year, 6 months, that you can change that?
Right.
And she's like, actually, didn't dawn on her, which is really crazy. But that's when you're under a lot of distress, You don't even think, oh, I can change this. Within 6 months, they changed it and that score went up and it actually affected everything around her. So for me, it could be as simple as a messy, cluttered house.
Right.
When I walk in and things are scattered everywhere, my score in this area drops really low. And so it could be repairs that your house there's repairs that have not been done.
Right.
So there's some things to consider that
your husband's honey-do list that hasn't happened. Is that what you're trying to say?
That is exactly what I'm trying to say. So if you don't mind getting the lights on the back patio hung higher, that would be...
I'll do that.
Okay. Now, here's a few other things that could challenge your place score. You're living in a crowded living space. Maybe you have other family members living with you. You're living in a small space. You're living with your in-laws.
That could be challenging.
That would be challenging. Or you're feeling stuck in a town or job. You really don't like South Florida, or you really don't like the mountains and you're living there.
Right.
Or your job, your place that you work is something you don't enjoy.
Right.
And honestly, it could be the place you live, you don't like the weather.
Yeah.
Or it is just the environment that you live in. You're just dissatisfied with it.
Yeah. I mean, you think about the weather thing, people who don't get a lot of sunshine, it affects their vitamin D. There's actually, a syndrome I don't know the name of right now, but I know that there's people who struggle with seasonal depression and anxiety when the weather's like, so yeah, those things can affect your place score. Right.
Our daughter, Alex, she actually suffers with this in New York.
Right.
And so every winter, she's like, here it comes, my seasonal depression. So she's looking, because she works remotely, looking to actually work at least 1 month of winter, not in New York.
Right.
She's actually
changing. Adjust her place.
Yes.
To bring up her peace index, right?
That's right.
So let me give you some suggestions to identify what is actually affecting your place score. First of all, think about journaling or discussing what's working and what isn't. Sometimes it's just identifying the actual issues. So get some paper out together or individually and just think about all the spaces you show up, all the environments you show up. What's working, what isn't working there, right?
And actually, to be okay. It could seem like it's insignificant, but nothing's insignificant. Write everything down.
Yeah. And then secondly, after you made that list, identify what you're in control of, what you have control of, and those things you can't control. Areas you can control are things like clutter, decor, boundaries. Things you may not be able to control is the weather. Those things you may not have complete control over right now, but you can control the controllables, right?
Right.
We love this tool, the change equation, which we just recently did a podcast episode on. You need to identify the dissatisfaction. So what are those things in your place score that you're dissatisfied with? What's the next step you can take? The greater vision for what that would look like. Make that larger than the resistance. So what's the resistance? It's barriers, things you can't overcome. So if there's some things that feel like barriers, what are some ways to get around those or overcome those things? What are the hurdles? So maybe some new disciplines and cleaning your house or organizing your house or organizing your office. Tidying up your desk is going to make you feel better about your space. And then gaps. Maybe there's just some gaps that you need to fill. Maybe that's, researching, find some places that you can temporarily go to bring up your peace score, whether it's parks or whatever, just to help with that piece. So using that change equation as a way to address those gaps.
Here's some practical ideas that you can do to elevate the score. Maybe you rearrange the furniture in your house. I've done this often. I just need a refresh.
Right.
If you live in a small space, maybe you actually need to get a small storage unit and minimize everything in your house so that you're decluttering it and not feeling so crowded. It could be as simple as having a candle in a room. It creates an environment of peace and gives us fresh smell to a room that could smell a little stale or stagnant.
That's true. I know just recently I had been working my office at the kitchen table, which was fine, but I always had to set it up and tear it down. We dedicated some time to a space that I could actually set up as an office, and it's totally changed my place score. I actually look forward to going to my office because it's my place and it brings that score completely up.
Yeah, the thing I love about you having an office, it also actually helps our marriage peace index. Because when you're working in the living room or you're working in the kitchen, it feels like you're always working. And when you're in here, we just recently had this conversation this week. James, do you mind always working when I'm home in your office? Because it designates your working and it brings marital peace for me when you do that. You could create a peace zone I have a place that I sit and do my quiet time. It looks a certain way. My books are a certain way. Everything that I need is there. Some people love to garden.
Yep.
They have flower beds and raised beds that they're growing vegetables. I wish I could. I would kill them all.
Right.
But love tending to those things. It brings
the vegetables, not the people.
That's right. That's right.
Just to clarify.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Or maybe you need a tech-free space that all technology is put away. What do you need to have a peace zone in whatever space that you're in? One of the things of people who like live in South Florida who would rather have mountains, don't have a place to go hike. There are places around here with it's flat land, but you can enjoy nature and that you go for walks. It's like figure out where you live, how you can actually enjoy the state, the city, that neighborhood that you're in. You know, you may want to do some research on some long-term relocation goals. You're like, you know what? I can't do the mountains much longer. Well, come on and join us in South Florida. Get a strategy of how you're going to relocate. Because even doing that, knowing it could be 5 years or 6 years or next year, it brings a peace that you know you have a targeted goal to change your place environment.
Yeah. The reality is you don't have to move to raise your place score, right? So peace comes from being intentional with where you live right now.
Right.
So you can do some small things to raise that place score pretty quickly.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to provision. I was thinking about this, you know, purpose is my driving indicator. Provision is right there behind it. I think my natural desire to provide is triggered when things get tight financially or when things feel stressed.
I can, and just from a married's perspective, I can feel that when you're that way. And I remind myself that I'm glad and I'm honored that provision matters to you.
I was thinking about this because I think provision is from perspective. Some of my feelings on provision probably are from my upbringing. You know, my dad was very frugal.
You can know this by when you're jumping in dumpsters to collect aluminum cans to buy your first bike.
Yeah, that was my job. I dumpster dived. I forgot about that. Dumpster dived every Saturday to collect aluminum cans, but very frugal. I had to work for everything. We actually had money, but I dressed like it was always hand-me-downs from my cousins. And so I never really had the new stylish clothing. And so I thought, you know, naturally thought that we didn't have much. I remember I had this kid at school. His name was Dennis. And one time, I don't know why he said this. He goes, "Man, your family is so rich." And I was like, no, we're not rich. I said, "Why would you say that?" He said, "Well, you guys go on family vacations all the time." And it hit me. It was like, oh, yeah. I mean, growing up, we went to Hawaii, did a week in Disney World, and we had a place in North Carolina, went every summer. Had a place up on Lake Erie, went a lot of weekends, go fishing. So we had all these experiences as family growing up that people, their perspective of provision was like we were really well off, where my perspective was because I saw what other people had and didn't think we had as much. And so I think it's important that when we think about provision, we understand what the story is we're telling ourselves about provision, right?
Yeah, that's so very good. We were recently working with a couple that actually weren't on the same page and had a different experience and a perspective of provision that caused a lot of tension. In marriage, thankfully, you and I have actually come from similar backgrounds, so there's not a lot of tension there.
Right.
Actually, it doesn't serve us well sometimes because we get too frugal and scarcity mindset.
Right.
We double down on that. So this couple, they both came from two different experiences with money. The husband actually had his identity stolen by a parent and destroyed his credit.
Right.
He wasn't able to buy the things and do the things that he needed to do as an adult because before he even came into adulthood, his credit had been destroyed. That's a significant, that's the first time I've ever heard anything like that happening. Then the wife had been in an abusive marriage and was controlled by money by her spouse. I remember one, not her in particular, but remember we had a couple that they had to return pickles because she was like, "You went over the budget by $3.22.
Take those pickles back."
Yes. It's like that was the kind of control of this wife. So you bring these two people together. What is he going to do? Right. He's going to control. Right. Because he has a perspective that he wants to make sure things are okay. Right. She has been controlled. Right. And does not want to be controlled. Right. This was so massive because they had two different experiences.
That perspective, they were telling the story to each other. So it's important that you begin to understand on what the story is you're telling yourself and how that affects your provision score. And is it realities?
For the two of them, that was an aha moment. They've been living this life for 20, 25 years. Yeah. But in this discovery of a reboot, this emerged and it gave them clarity on each other's perspective. So they had grace and understanding. So she's going, "Oh my goodness, this is why I feel controlled by you. It isn't because you're trying to be controlling. It's And then he's like, oh, this is why she's resisting me and scaring me when she spends money.
Right.
And so that understanding brought clarity. Their perspectives brought them together as a married couple.
And, when you think about provision and finances and, this area, it's one of the greatest tension points for marriage. Getting on the same page here, especially if one person, is a provider and they're feeling like the weight of this, getting on the same page and telling yourself the same story is really important. So let me give you a few areas to focus on to begin to think about your provision score. First of all, going back to controlling the controllables, focus on what's in your control. You can control your budget. You can control if you need to increase income by getting a side hustle or a second job. You can control your spending habits. You can control your mindset. And also you can control generosity. You also need to think about what's not in your control. You can't control the market changes, interest rates, inflation. You can't control those things. You can't control a layoff. So those things are out of your control, but you can focus and control the controllables. And then I think a second thing is define what enough is for your family. Everybody's going to have a different view of what enough is and when they actually feel fulfilled in their provision. And then I think the last thing is to set some shared goals, not just saving and earning, but giving and legacy. What do you want the provision of your life to actually accomplish?
Right. That's right. We personally believe that provision is tied to the stewardship of our life. We know that everything belongs to God.
Right.
And so it's a biblical foundation that everything on the earth, in the earth that we have belongs to the Lord. And how are we going to steward that well? That's why when provision aligns with purpose, peace will follow.
That's right.
So here's a few practical tips to increase your provision peace score. The first is to make a weekly money peace meeting. We do this because we have some perspectives around money and provision that we want to be on the same page. So it could be as few as 15 minutes of just like, where are we at with budget? How are things going? It brings a lot of peace because we're on the same page. And then maybe in one of those weekly money peace meetings, we need to spend an extended amount of time to pray and plan and prioritize where our money's going.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think just having the plan actually brings a lot of peace too, right? Okay, let's talk about personal health. Again, this is talking about all areas of our personal health, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual challenges that we might face. If your score is low, there's probably some challenges in one of those areas. It's going to impact connection. It's going to impact your leadership. It's going to impact peace and relationships.
So for us, we are learning and we're aging beautifully.
We're seasoning.
We're seasoning. Great. I am declaring I'm not going to tell people I am old.
No, we're not.
No, we're not going to do that. But we are aging and there's a greater awareness of the physical changes that are happening and the physical things that we need to be doing to remain strong and grow older, stronger, and healthier in all ways. So some of the new rhythms that we have, and matter of fact, you're looking really good, James Duval.
Thank you.
So is going to the gym 3 times a week with weight training. We know this about our physical bodies. We're going to lose muscle mass as we get older, and it's important to maintain and actually grow in that area. Mindful of eating, limiting sweets, limiting sugary drinks, things like that we're going, this is important for our physical health.
Yeah.
But then there also is the spiritual and mental habits that we have.
Right.
Often I need to go back to a therapist. I don't see a therapist all the time, every week, but there's seasons, and I'm in one of those seasons where I need that support so that I can sort and be in a place of mental health and emotional health for you. So again, awareness of knowing what it is that you need, identifying that and living into it.
Yeah, I think especially as we're getting older, we see other people who are aging that didn't deal with the emotional and mental things early on. And now the compounding effect of that is really taking hold in their older age. So if you're listening and you're younger, listening to this podcast, this personal health piece, especially in the area of mental and emotional health, is so important because it will compound later on in life. We're trying to increase some new habits. Like we just installed a cold plunge in our house.
Help us, Jesus.
It's great for mood and well-being. I've been doing it, every day for the last few weeks. And I've already started seeing an improvement in my recovery, my mental well-being, my sleep score. You haven't used it as much yet, but you are getting into it, and people should be watching on Instagram for proof of life when Lisa actually gets into the cold
that
plunge.
I get in and die and then get out and my legs fall off because I'm frozen. Yeah. So we have some suggestions to help improve in this area. As I mentioned, it starts with awareness. Being able to rate yourself 1 to 10 in physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. How are you doing in those particular areas that make up personal health? Choose one action to raise that in the area that's low. If it's physical health, maybe you don't want to go to the gym. You have no desire to go to the gym. But if you could get out and walk 10 minutes every morning or 3 times a week, you're moving toward that goal. Don't set goals that you can't achieve, set the ones that you can do.
That's a great point, because you want to set a win, such a small goal that have to really try to fail. Walking 10 minutes, anybody can do that. So set a goal so small and then start doing that.
And back to like provision, our physical health is stewardship.
Right.
This is the body. It's a temple of the Lord.
Right.
And so caring for it and tending to it as unto the Lord is really important.
That's right. Yeah. And I would say just schedule some key checkups too. Like part of that stewardship piece is, when was the last time you had an annual physical? Mm-hmm. Do a full blood panel. There's so much research out right now on metabolic health, mm-hmm. and, getting serious about what's going on with your supplements and hormones and thyroid, inflammation. All those things are really important. That's been a huge thing for us lately. And maybe in another podcast, we'll talk about that. Dental health. I just got a dental cleaning.
They're calling me and I haven't scheduled mine, and I'm going to do it because I'm going to take care of myself. You know what? When you check in on mental health and you need a little support, maybe you don't need to go to a therapist. Don't discount your pastors at your church to a pastoral conversation of doing a well check with them. Not everyone needs to pay for counseling and therapy. I personally am a champion of it because it's made a difference in my life. But it isn't necessarily for everyone. You're not in that place. But having someone where you have a confidential conversation, which is with a pastor at your church, right? That would be a great way to check in.
I love this quote: "A wise man sees danger and takes precautions." It's from Proverbs 27:12. A wise man sees danger and takes precautions. And so with our personal health, it's never too late to start taking personal precautions to make sure that we're staying healthy and vibrant through our life.
Fantastic. So now let's talk about the last aspect of peace, my very favorite, and that's people. It is my lead indicator. And as a nurturer voice, if you are a nurturer voice, more than likely, this is probably your lead indicator. For all of us, though, relationships are important. They're essential to peace in our lives as individuals and as couples. We talk about a pro-marriage community, relationships. We can't get away from them. And the truth is, if we try to, we're probably not that healthy. We actually have a podcast on pro-marriage community. We'll put the link in the show notes. Right. We, meaning I will not, and James will do that. Here's some indicators that you may have a low score. If you're disconnected from community, you're in isolation, you feel misunderstood, you don't feel known by someone, you have relational fatigue, people are wearing you out. As a people person, this last year, the season of taking care of my mom, my people score was so low because I was in isolation. Basically, you and I were in isolation. A lot of our friends to go to dinner with or have over, that wasn't happening. Right. And so that was low. So
it really affected everything. It affected your personal health, affected everything.
Yes. Right? Yeah. So every single thing I just listed: disconnection, isolated, feeling misunderstood, and relational fatigue, because even relationships that I would try to have, I didn't have the emotional bandwidth to do it. Those are some indicators. Life factors around this is when you move and relocate to another area and you have to start over building community. That can be very exhausting and hard, or you just don't have those people. Job changes, even if you're in your local area. James, when you transitioned in your work, that really did change some dynamics in relationship, even for me, because we're both pastors. Seasons of life can also change, just as we mentioned with us taking care of my mom. But it could be you've had a baby, you're new parents, you can't stay out late, you're on the demands of a baby. All different kinds of personal health issues, all of those things, different things in seasons of our life that actually shift and change our relationships. Yeah.
Let me give you some suggestions of how to maybe raise your people score. First of all, is assess current relational environment. Who are your 3 to 5 closest friends, right? Who are the people that are investing in your life? We always say that you're the average of your 5 closest friends. So do you need to raise the level of your friendships? Do you feel known, encouraged, and sharpened? The Bible talks about iron sharpening iron. Do you have people who are helping you be better? An action step you can take is that each of you choose one relationship to lean into and one to address with grace. So maybe it's another couple that you need to lean into, and maybe there's some couple friends or some individual friends that you need to approach with grace and step away from. All those things are going to help raise your people score. And then the last thing I'd say here is just build some new rhythms. Maybe it's a monthly dinner with another couple. Maybe it's a bi-weekly call with a long distance friend. Maybe you need to rejoin a small group or a service team at your church. Someplace you're going to be around people to not be isolated. One of the things about struggles in marriage that we know is that when couples start to struggle in their marriage, the first thing they do is isolate. And so if there's some struggling there, maybe the next thing you need to do is you need to reconnect in community, build that pro-marriage community around you. And then finally, just pray together. God, help us heal and strengthen our relationships. Help us to be initiators, not just have expectations, but all those things are going to help increase your people score.
I love it. I love it.
Like we said, this could be the diagnostic tool that reveals what's lowering your peace and well-being. If you use this as a tool ongoing in your life, maybe every few weeks, or if you're feeling down, walk through the peace index. Do it individually and then also do it together. Challenge one another. If you see your spouse that they feel like they're struggling, hey, let's talk about your peace. What's going on in your peace? And just walk through it and help each other identify those areas. Again, it's a dynamic tool. It's not static. And so there's going to be things that are going to be affecting our peace all the time.
So you also want to take time to identify what your leading indicator is and know that about one another, because people is mine. And so when that goes down, that's going to affect all. And so it's important to know what your spouse's leading indicator is.
Right.
Once you know that and you identify what's low, take some action. Ask what is one small step that you can take to improve the score by even 5% this week. And remember to measure the gain, not the gap.
Right.
So we're always looking at where we want to be. That goal out in front of us is always
the ideal thing of what we think life should be.
Is always moving out in front of us. And so even when we move toward it, it's like the sunrise, you never get to it. So, but look back to go, how far have I come in my own personal peace? That will encourage you and allow you to know that you are actually making movement. You're not as stuck as you think you maybe are.
I just want to remind you too, that you find what you're looking for, right? That whole reticular activating system. If we're looking for a lack, we're going to find lack. But if we're looking for growth, we're going to find growth. Peace isn't accidental. It's actually intentional, and you can build it together.
That's exactly right. And if you want help diving deeper into this tool, message us on Instagram or email us through the link in the show notes. We'd love to talk to you about a marriage reboot, because that could help in all of these areas if you identify that. We're so grateful for you. We love walking this journey with you. If this episode encouraged you, would you take a second to leave a rating or review? It helps more couples find these conversations. And if you know of a couple who needs this episode, text it to them. Start a conversation, invite them into the growth process with you.
And if you're not receiving our weekly email, the weekly practice, you can join it by texting the letters AOS to 66866. And this Monday, you'll get the next episode of the weekly practice. So keep living with intention, leading with love, and building a marriage that lasts. Until next time, bye-bye.